My last few Doctor Who videos have been quite negative, and I'm aware this one will probably be too, but I promise I'll do some positive ones soon. Just stay with me on this. But today I want to talk about the 60th anniversary Doctor Who specials and how I think the decisions made in those 3 episodes led to some of the problems that have been evident in the latest 2 seasons. And I want to start this by saying I don't hate the 60th. Yes, it's got problems. Yes, there are some insane choices, both in its storytelling and just weird dialogue.
Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
But I did have fun with them. While Blue Yonder is a great episode full of wonderful little character scenes and emotional beats, I think the Star Beast is at its best when it just has fun with the Meep and the Wath Warriors, and I like the first half of the Giggle. All the Toymaker stuff is brilliantly done and it balances the zany things with the creepy things quite well. So this isn't going to be a slating of the 60th, nor is it going to be me slating the current show for the sake of a few YouTube likes. I'm not doing that, but I do think the issues that are there deeply affect the show, not just in its narrative but also on a production level, complicating the season's objectives and the new deal they made with Disney. And my points can really be broken into 3 categories, starting with... Now, if you've watched any of my other Doctor Who videos, you will know I've had a problem with the show constantly playing into nostalgia and previous eras that did well at the time. For a show that's always been forward-thinking and progressive, I really want the creativity of the production team to match that. I just think new is always better. The odd cameo and Easter egg to past adventures or companions is fine, but it can very quickly become overkill. And more importantly, if handled wrong, it can feel muddled or confusing or boring or bad. New and exciting ideas always prevail over nostalgia and the past. But, and this is a big but, I don't have this feeling when it comes to anniversaries. Anniversary specials, like the Christmas specials, are their own beasts. They have their own place in the show. Anniversaries are and should be 100% for the fans. They are the one time you can throw every cameo into a story and I will be smiling like an idiot. Because a show running for 60 plus years is a massive achievement, and honestly, the show is allowed to celebrate itself for it. Throw in the old classic villains and the Doctors, give me every actor who's ever played a companion, give me old TARDIS consoles, silly past running gags, it's the perfect time. They should be a celebration for the show and for the long-suffering fans who have stuck with it through the good, the bad, and the Peter K. It's the one time you can go full-on fan-wanky nonsense and it feels earned. Because a Doctor Who anniversary should never be a jumping-on point for new viewers. That's ridiculous. They can wait. This is for us. That being said, in a fan-wanky perspective, the 60th was kinda tame. Like, I know people feel like it was celebrating Series 4 more than the show as a whole, and while I understand feeling that, it does kinda make sense to me. Like it or not, Series 4 is one of the most iconic seasons for general viewers, and getting David Tennant and Catherine Tate back was always going to boost ratings. Now, I don't think that's what an anniversary should be solely aiming for, but with the money that was being spent on it, I understand them wanting to get as many people tuning in as possible. But really, other than the obvious, there weren't as many cameos or callbacks like I was expecting. While Blue Yonder feels like a generic episode of Doctor Who, a very good episode, but not the manic fan pleaser that it could have been. We didn't have all the past Doctors come back. We didn't have Rose or Martha, Amy, Rory, River, none of them. No Daleks, no Cybermen. The Master was chilling in a tooth. It was pretty stripped back from what I was expecting. The Rani didn't return, Omega wasn't mentioned, no Gallifrey, no Time Lords, just a big bear, a killer Snapchat filter, and a good old-fashioned game of catch. And at the time, I thought that was quite brave. I didn't really have an issue with it. But now, I kinda wish they'd gone full out. I wish it had been nuts and given us a headache, because it almost feels like the show regrets not doing it. Because since the 60th, the perfect time to do cameos and nutty reveals, we have had, and I'm gonna take a big breath for this, Sutek, Susan, the Rani, Omega, Last of the Time Lords again, Billy bloody Piper, about 1,000 scenes of the past Doctors popping up on a screen, Jodie Whittaker, the Memory TARDIS, the Doctor watching one of his japes on BBC iPlayer, a character peering in on past adventures, the Fugitive Doctor, constant lore building, and there's probably more I'm missing. And that's all wild to me. I don't get that. I wasn't expecting a showrunner to bring all those things back, let alone in just 2 8-episode seasons. And they wonder why new viewers didn't catch up. Well, surprise, surprise. It's kind of impossible. Like, all of that together feels like a mad, messy anniversary extravaganza, and instead it's in 2 pretty normal seasons of the show. Seasons that apparently were aimed at getting new viewers on board. More on that in a bit. I just wish they'd gotten it all out of their system in the 60th. Would it have been messy? Yes. Would it have been bad? Almost certainly. But that's where these things belong. It's the perfect excuse to blow your own trumpet, make silly decisions to please die-hard weirdos, and then move on with a fresh new vision, new Doctor, and all new ideas. Like it or not, the 60th is the beginning of the 15th Doctor's era. I know people took issue with Disney Plus advertising Church on Ruby Road as Special 4, joining it with the 60th rather than making it Episode 1, but really, I don't blame them. If anything, I don't think they had much of a choice. Because the 60th isn't standalone, it's not the ending of one era before passing the torch to the next. It's actually the place where nearly everything that matters in Ncuti's era is first introduced or explored. And while skipping them won't confuse new viewers entirely, it still feels odd to try and make them unaware of 3 episodes that aired less than a year before, definitely when they include so much of what's to come. The boss is first mentioned in the Star Beast, and that hasn't even been paid off yet. The sprinkling of the salt in Well Blue Yonder is how the Pantheon breaks into the universe. Susan Twist is first seen in this episode 2, as well as the birth of the running gag of Mavity. The Toymaker speaks of his legions coming through, which the Goblins, 15's first villains, are a part of. It also includes the self-titled Giggle, which reappears in a few of his episodes and is played in a way that only really is effective if you know what it means. Bi-generation is first introduced here, and 15 himself spends a lot more time in the Giggle than most new Doctors do on their first on-screen appearance. Like, I always think of Deep Breath as Capaldi's first episode, but I think of the Giggle as Ncuti's first. The 60th is unfortunately very important to the plot of season 1 and 2. It would make no sense to try and separate them for new viewers when 1, they're on the same streaming platform, and 2, they literally include everything that's about to be explored. And if they had marketed Ruby Road as episode 1, they wouldn't have been able to post Space Babies, which then would have been episode 2, until like 4 months later, and that just doesn't make any sense. Now, they could have called it the Christmas special, but new viewers aren't going to get excited by a Christmas special for a show they don't know. Continuing by calling it Special 4 kinda does make the most sense to me. I don't think it's ideal, I think it's bad for the show, but it's kinda the cards they were given. I really wish the 60th had been solely made by the BBC. It would have been cheaper and whatever, but in a storytelling perspective, it would have made so much more sense. That way, the 60th could be the manic, fan-pleasing event, and then 15's first episode would have been the first one on Disney Plus, forcing the production team to make it a complete fresh start. Instead, what we got was kind of a mix of both, which in my opinion just doesn't work. The 60th is far too connected to a previous era of the show that Disney Plus doesn't even have available to stream. To fully enjoy the 60th, you really need to have a good understanding of Season 4. And Season 4 is not a good jumping on point. It really is the bringing together all these storylines that they've been working on for years throughout spin-offs. So it's not inviting for new viewers. New fans should fall in love with their first era and later go on to explore the show's past seasons and adventures. And like I said, this isn't exactly an issue of the 60th episodes themselves, but more of how connected season 1 is to them, because it's kind of insane to have 4 specials before season 1 even comes out. Like, that's not how telly works. That's confusing as shit. You can't start an era with a big celebration. Even with how the 60th ends, with David Tennant having a picnic in the garden, it feels like something you need to know for this era, because fans keep theorising he's coming back. It's a very strong possibility he will. So you need to know that he's living it up in a garden in London, just in case that reveal ever comes. So you can't ignore the 60th, but you can't really start with the 60th, meaning it's kind of just there. Speaking of the picnic therapy shenanigans, I think this is another big problem moving forward when it comes to 15's character. Now, I never liked the ending of the 60th. I don't think a picnic is a satisfying conclusion to a celebration of a 60-year sci-fi show. I think it's far too twee, and it just feels desperate to pull on the heartstrings. But also, from a writing and storytelling perspective, it makes the writers' lives so much harder going forward, it's ridiculous. Drama survives on conflict. Drama needs conflict at every turn. To be honest, stories in general, they live and breathe on conflict and the characters never being in the best mental states. Take the most easy viewing, light-hearted sitcom, and nearly every storyline will involve a character suffering through something, even if it's as simple as not being able to turn the heating off. And although characters do change and grow throughout a story, or at least they should if it's well written, their development can never completely finish, because once it does, that is the end of the show, film, or book, because there's nowhere else to take them. So the Doctor, going through therapy and working out all of his past trauma, strips the character from most of his agency. Not urgency, like I kept saying in my previous video, like an idiot. Him learning to settle down, to relax, have a family, open up emotionally and talk through his problems kind of fixes most of the flaws that the Doctor has, leaving very little room to go with the character. Now, this is not me saying you need to keep having the same character arc for the Doctor and that he can never move on from certain situations, but its core character flaws need to be there in every new situation. They are the Time Lord that runs away, has a deeply buried darkness underneath all the whimsy. They have time at their fingertips and yet they still feel like they're missing out, desperate to see the next thing and the next and the next. That's the character. You can write anything you want around that and on top of it, but that's very much the foundation of the Doctor and the show as a whole. So it's not surprising to me that season 1 really feels lacking in any kind of conflict. The Doctor feels like a passenger in their own show because he's fine. They don't really give him a major character arc to explore, so he just becomes a stock character. And when the show does try to introduce anything, you can't help but feel like the 60th contradicts it. Like the ending of Empire of Death when the Doctor says this:
I talk about family in a way that I never did before. It's because of you.
That just doesn't ring true. You had a family. You were sharing stories and potato salad. What the hell do you mean, man? And because the character is now lacking in personal, emotional stakes, the episodes try to compensate for it. It's no surprise we get a big end of the world storyline at the end, because it's impossible to have a small character-fueled story with a character that's kind of fine. And then it feels like the show begins to backtrack from this, because suddenly he's the last of the Time Lords again. Surprise, surprise! Although he's literally not, but whatever. Suddenly he's incredibly angry at points, but then it goes. It can't stay. He can't learn from it, because most of his character growth has been done for him before Ruby Road even begins. And I think this is partly why it all feels so lore heavy without much substance, such as the fertile thing, because once you've told the audience that the main character is basically fixed, you've suddenly got to add a lot of new things to make the story worth telling. It's kind of like when a sequel gets announced or a spin-off show gets announced, and you can kind of tell that was never the original plan, because suddenly in the sequel or spin-off they have to find a way to undo all the work and progress the character made to make the new film or show worthwhile. That's how I feel with some of this new era. Not fully, not all the time, there's still some great stuff in and around the show, but the drama, the conflict, feels either missing or forced. So what next? How do you fix it going forward? Honestly, I don't know. I think they should just do whatever they're doing with Billie Piper. They've done it now, so they might as well try and make it as bloody good as they possibly can. Have fun with it, go wild, whatever. But then it needs a complete fresh start. Not ignore what's come before, but not be held back or try to pander towards it. If it was me, I'd have Billie Piper regenerate into the next Doctor, and then that Doctor's first episode would not be their first adventure. Have them having lived already for 100 years. That way the character has moved on from storylines of the past and immediately feels fresh and has a place you can take them. Also, it'd be a nice gift for Big Finish. And that's just one idea. Like, I'll probably regret saying that tomorrow once I've slept on it and realised how awful it is. But hey, you get the point. I just want the show to stop patting itself on the back. Instead, it's got to be new, exciting, charging forward and inspiring the next generation of creatives. And then, when it gets there, because it will, it can be self-indulgent on its 70th birthday.